Welcome back to GCC. Today we're going to build a budget ITX home theater PC. This isn't exactly the caliber of PC that you may see on other TechTuber channels with a 1080 Ti. It's just a budget build with low power draw that'll be able to play movies and stream 4K without a problem. Maybe toss in some light gaming on the side. So let's start by unboxing all of our parts. Alright, so here we are. Everything's already unboxed. So I've got a Ryzen 2200G, so a 4-core, 4-thread, 3.5 base clock, 3.7 boost. I got 8 gigs or 16 gigs? Yeah, so 16 gig kit of HyperX Fury, only 2133. And like I said, this is a budget build. I got my ASRock B350 Gaming ITX, so it's got wireless AC, supports some overclocking on my 2200G. Really, I just went with this one because the Asus one was way too pricey. I got my Gigabyte RX 560. It's a 4 gig variant. It's the Rev 2, 1024 cores. Nothing special, nothing fancy. It's just really cheap. So I picked up this for $72 just a couple days ago on Walmart.com. I've got a 240 gig SSD from SanDisk here, 750 gig SATA 2.5-inch drive for major storage and games and stuff. I'll probably toss in a 2 terabyte drive pretty soon. I just had this one on hand from an old laptop. So yeah, it'll be cooled by a Cooler Master ML120L, so it's the 120 rad light version. So it should do just fine. It should do probably better than the Wraith cooler that comes with the 2200G. So this whole build will probably be shoved into a tight space, and I want to make sure it's getting enough cooling. So for the case, I went with the Cooler Master Elite 110. No, I actually don't really like Cooler Master very much, so if anyone's wondering why I'm using a couple of their products. It was cheap, it's pretty small, and it supports a full-size ATX power supply, which is this guy. So I'm using the Seasonic M12 bronze. It's fully modular, 520 watts. It's bronze rated, as you can guess by the name. So nothing fancy, but plenty to power this little build. This thing could probably go off like a 300 watt power supply. So all right, let's get to getting. Alright, so first I want to toss in my new processor. It's actually my second time doing this build. The first time I actually used a Ryzen 1600 6-core 12-thread chip, but a buddy of mine recently told me that he was really in need of a new PC and was hoping to help me. He was hoping to have my help with a build, and I was like, well, you can just have this. Like I don't need six cores and 12 threads to run YouTube, So I sent him that chip, so now I'm rocking the 2200G. So first things first, you see this this little triangle in the corner here is one that corresponds on the actual socket as well. So you want to make sure those line up. So pull the lever up, straight up, and then gently drop the socket in. You don't need to push. You can do a little side-to-side wiggle to make sure it's seated properly, and then just press the lever down, real nice and easy. You don't unlike Intel sockets, you don't have to like smash that lever down to make it click. So that's it. The socket's already the chip's already installed in the socket, and we're ready to go. So for RAM, I got 2 DIMMs of HyperX Fury. It's CAS 14 at 2133 megahertz, so I figure it was really cheap. This whole kit was like $100, I think. So I figured I could do some overclocking on the RAM if I wanted to. I don't even know if I'll need to, honestly. Like this is a pretty lightweight build, So you'll notice that on the actual DIMM there is a longer section and a shorter section. So make sure that the way that you install it is correctly set up so that long side matches long side. Some motherboards like this one, only one side of the DIMM sockets open, so these ones are permanently closed, right? So just guide it into place and then press firmly until it clicks. Alright, and then the other one, make sure it matches. There we go. Grab the case. So this is the Cooler Master Elite 110. It's for the drives. So this is it's an alright case. It's definitely a cheap case. It's not, machined very well. The first time that I did a build in this thing, there were no threads in one of the standoff holes, so I had to re-tap that out myself, but it happens. Alright, so you'll see there's 4 standoff mounts for the motherboard. So you take out your 4 screws, grab your I/O shield. You'll want, so there's the pretty side and the dull side. Make sure that the pretty side goes out and line it up with the motherboard so that you know it's installed correctly. So just like that, and then press it from the outside or from the inside out. My first ever build was a 4790K paired with a 750 Ti. I know, it was a shitty card. And it was in a really cheap little Corsair case. And the first time I threw it all together, I forgot to put on the I/O shield. So for about a year and a half, I was rocking no I/O shield until I was lazy enough, I guess. I guess not, until I finally took it apart and put it back in. So what you're gonna do is gently rest your motherboard on the standoffs and kind of push it into the I/O shield, right? And you'll see that the screws start to line up. So at that point, you can start to thread it in. Helps if you have a screwdriver handy, I found. So you don't need to go crazy with the torque on these screws. They're pretty cheesy little screws, so just make sure it's tight. You don't have to crank it. Alright, this motherboard is installed. So now we've got our I/O shield, motherboard, 16 gigs of RAM, and a Ryzen 2200G are already installed. Alright, so next I want to do the front panel connectors. So maybe I should have done this beforehand. We'll see. This case has a couple of routing channels for all of your wires and cables and stuff, so that's fairly nice, I suppose. Probably do the... So it comes with a USB 3.0 and a USB 2.0 connector. You can't do both. It specifically says like don't plug in both, only plug in one to your motherboard. So be wary of that. You got your front audio connector, and then your LED on the side of the front panel, your reset switch right there, and then these two guys are your super bright blue power button. So, all right, let's see what we can do. Alright, so those guys are all routed. So for your audio, for your front panel, there's one missing pin. It's a blinking pin, so make sure you correspond that correctly with the missing pin on the board. So something like this. Slide it in. So this case, they tout this case as having like some really good routing channels and like cable management areas, but I actually find that to be completely false. It's a huge pain in the butt to try and route anything in this case because there's nowhere to hide anything. It all just has to lay flat somewhere here in the bottom. So what I'm going to try and do is see if I can't put all this here and grab my RX 560 and try and use it to hold everything down. Probably a dumb idea. We'll see what happens. Yeah, that works. Okay, so RX 560 is installed. I'm gonna grab a screw and secure it. All right. Next, I want to install the radiator. So, this is a huge pain in the butt because these tubes are really rigid. I think it's called PEBT tubing, but it sucks ass. It's terrible. It's so hard to work with. So, I'll leave that there for now. I got a Noctua fan here. A little bit higher pressure fan, more airflow than what came stock with this cooler. So let's see if we can get this thing installed. All right. Alright, so now we've got my Noctua fan here. It's got a 4-pin PWM connector on it. So you'll see that there are fan headers located around the socket. So what I'm going to do is plug in the pump header from my 120 AIO. It's a 3-pin, which means it's not variable. It's a fixed rate pump, so I don't have to worry about the pump speed rising or lowering with the CPU temps or load. So I can plug that in anywhere. So I'm going to plug that in down here where it says chassis fan with pump. Realistically, you can put it anywhere. It doesn't matter. My Noctua fan, though, I want it to spool up when my processor is under load. So I'm going to put that under AMD fan with LED. So CPU fan 1, channel fan 2. Yeah, it's right here. Alright. See if you can hide this a little bit. Something like that. Alright. So, now that that's installed, I'm going to route my USB 2 header. Let's see how this works. So you'll see that there's a notch here on the connector, on the actual connector for the USB 3.0. And there's a corresponding notch in the header on the motherboard, so you want to make sure that those line up. I really hate these connectors. They don't clip into place like, SATA has the little metal latch. Like the SATA data has a little latch you can use to disconnect or make sure that it's secure. I've always had trouble with these things, especially when they're run at weird angles. I've always had problems with them coming out, so I'm trying to go at a higher angle so it's not as tight of a bend. Alright, so that's installed. We'll see if I can kind of route this and close this guy. Okay, awesome. Okay, so now all I need to do is put on some thermal compound on my CPU, install the power supply, and we're pretty much done. Right? Yeah. Alright, so for thermal paste, I've got a new packet of Thermal Grizzly Cryonaut. I've never used their products before, but they've been getting a ton of good coverage and good reviews and stuff. So I figured I'd give it a shot. The stuff I used last time was the stuff from Cooler Master, and it was pretty bad. So it didn't spread very well. So when I took it apart last time, when I gave away that Ryzen 1600, there's like very little spread, and it's really like chalky. So I wasn't a big fan of it. So let's see how this performs. Okay. So, okay, very small little tube though. I paid like $13 for this. That's crazy. I've never paid so much for so little thermal compound. So I'm just gonna go with a little pea-sized goop right in the middle. That's probably good. Probably a little much, but better safe than sorry. Last time I was getting some pretty high temps even with the AIO, so I just want to make sure I've got enough coverage. So you see that there's these two black brackets installed on either side of the CPU socket, and there's these metal hooks. So all that you have to do is like hook it onto that plastic latch and tighten it down with that thumb screw. Hopefully without smearing all the thermal compound everywhere and everything. So we'll see what happens. So hook that guy, press it down. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. Nice and solid. I'm not going crazy tight with these thumb screws. As you can see, a little bit uneven actually. So let me see if I can get it an even spread. You can see that the thumb screws, the actual threads themselves, come out through the center of the thumb screw. So I just kind of want to even it out, make sure it's not clamping down harder on one side than the other, you know. So that feels pretty good. Okay. Next up is power supply. So here's my power supply. It's got this bracket screwed on from the case. So that's how it's actually mounted. So you attach the bracket to the power supply, pull the power supply into the case, and screw it in with a few screws. But first, I just want to get the motherboard, 24-pin connector, and the 8-pin EPS connector all set up. So I'll set that aside for now. I really like having a fully modular power supply. I think it just helps a lot with making everything cleaner and nice, especially on a case this small. You know, if I used a full-size ATX that wasn't modular, I don't think it'd be possible, honestly. Okay, so you can see labeled PSU and CPU. So this is my 8-pin CPU connector, which goes right here. So the connector itself is split into two pieces, so you gotta make sure that the two halves are sandwiched together correctly and then clipped in at the same time together. So I'm gonna pull this out here for now. 24-pin connector for the motherboard. So same thing, this side will go on the power supply, the actual 24-pin will go on the motherboard, which is right there. So just like that. Okay, pull these out for here for now. might have to reroute that. We'll see. I just want to make sure that the AIO tubes are not going to be in the way of the power supply. So we'll see. Might as well do SATA cables now, since it's going to be a pain in the butt later. So I got 4 headers down there for SATA drives, for SATA data. So okay. So because I only have one cable that is straight angles on both, I'm gonna have to use a 90. However, the drives are mounted upside down, so I can't just use a 90 on the drives, because it wouldn't work. So should get mounted like that. Yeah. Let me see. Yeah. So that's just too tall. So instead, you mount the cage like that with these guys mounted beneath, something like that. In which case, the connector would have to be opposite. So, yep. So I'm gonna put the 90 in first on this side. All right, and then straight angle is nice and easy. Right here. Okay. Okay. So, SATA drives are ready to get hooked up. All right, so slide in the power supply. So the power supply gets installed. Let me make sure. Does it matter? It only matters. So I'm gonna have it pulling in air from the top, because there is a large. Where's the cover at? There's this large mesh grill here at the top. So I'll see if I can get some airflow past the drives, because the drives are mounted above it. I think it's better than trying to pull in air from above the CPU socket. So gently shove everything out of the way. Oops, except for maybe my desk. There we go. So, there we go. Something like that. Let's get some stuff plugged in. Make sure we're good to go. So it can be really handy when you're first doing a build to plug in everything outside of your case before you have it all installed. So set the motherboard on top of your motherboard box, install the graphics card, RAM, CPU, and just do like a boot real fast from there to make sure that everything is working properly, because sometimes it doesn't. So there's that. Since my RX 560 does not need external power, that's about it. Install this guy for my CPU. And there we go. So this can support 2 8-pin PCIe connectors. Yeah. Oh, 3 actually. What? Yeah, 3. So it can support 1 CPU and 3 PCIes, which is pretty decent for a 520. All right, so let's grab a couple screws, dangle everything off the side for right now. Sweet. Okay, so that's installed. Let's do some drives. So like I said, this sled, this like drive sled mounts right here, with the drives mounted underneath. So something like that. something like that. So let's grab some the small, super small, like number 1 Phillips screws. Alright, now plug in SATA power, and we're good to go. So, L connector on that side, so let's go like that, and like that. Shove everything into the depths of the case. Hopefully nothing gets snagged. And we're just about done. Yeah. All right. Okay, so just like that. Okay. So I got a couple more screws to put on the back, and we're done. Alright guys, thanks for watching. I'll upload soon a video on how this thing performs. So this whole thing probably was about $400. Yeah, about that. So don't expect anything crazy, right? But I think it'll do what I need to do just fine. If the 560 turns out to not be enough, it's just a card that I had on hand, so I can always end up switching to a little bit more powerful graphics card. There's plenty in the market that can fit in a case this size. So yeah, we'll see. So if you like this video, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. It's gonna help me out a lot. So let me know in the comments below if you have any videos that you'd like me to do, or any topics you'd like me to discuss. So I know I've been doing a couple of PC related, hardware related videos lately, but pretty soon I'll be doing a video on Detroit Become Human, God of War, so we'll see. Thanks for watching, guys.